Hi, thank you for checking out my channel, The Career Nerd. Today I'm going to be talking to you about how to go to college for free, how to get access to some grants and some options that you have out there for you. I talk to a lot of students and a lot of times they don't want to go to college because they think they can't afford it because their family doesn't have money to send them or they don't have any family support at all. So we're going to go over some tips and tricks for you today to help you pay for college. All right, let's get into the video. So this video is going to be specific to California residents. Okay, so must be California resident to qualify for these options. There are options in every state for this, but it just would be a crazy video if I did like all 50 states. So I'm going to do California today, and then maybe I'll do another one for Ivy Leagues, but I'll mention an Ivy League today as well. So the first one I want to talk about is at the community college level. Is a newer grant called the Promise Grant. There's 3 types of Promise Grants, but the one I'm going to talk about today is one that is non-income contingent. So Gavin Newsom signed into law a bill that actually provided 2 years of free community college education to high school seniors. So we didn't have the money to do it for everyone, but we were able to do this for high school seniors. So if you are graduating high school and you start out at a community college, you can go for free for 2 years as long as you're a full-time student, meaning you take 12 semester units or more, and you keep your grades up. So you do have to pass the classes with C's or higher to maintain this grant. So you could potentially go to community college for 2 years for free, not drop a penny on tuition. You still have to pay for your books and housing, but many students have, housing potentially with the same housing they had in high school, or they have a community college in their home so they don't need to relocate to another part of the state to get access to a college or university. So Promise Grant is great. You'd be surprised how many people don't know about it, but I do love telling students when they say, oh, it didn't tell me I owed anything for tuition, and I love saying, well, it's because it's free. So it's really fun for me to get to tell students that definitely this is a wonderful option for you because it is not income contingent for the type of the Promise Grant I am mentioning. Now, to be qualified for the Promise Grant, different schools do it a little differently, but essentially you do want to fill out the FAFSA form, and I'm going to give you a link here to it. It's studentaid.gov or FAFSA.gov, and I've got it spelled out here for you. And this way you can fill this out. You're going to need your tax information if you are working. You will need your legal guardian's tax information if you have them to fill out that form. Make sure you check with your community college financial aid department for assistance. Option 2, if you want to go to a UC school. The UC system in California is one of the most prestigious systems in the entire country. 2 of our UC schools are some of the top schools in the country. UCLA is part of this, UC Berkeley, some really prestigious schools, and you can actually go to them for free if your family income reported on your FAFSA is $80,000 or less. You qualify for what is called the Blue and Gold Scholarship, and you need to make sure you fill out the FAFSA form to qualify for that. Also at the UC schools, depending on your income, you could potentially qualify for what are called Cal Grants. And so those could be additional help for you. So the Blue and Gold is tuition coverage. So it's just your tuition, typically not going to be room and board. Now, of course, you still have to get into these schools. These are more difficult schools to get into than some of the state schools, but that is an option for you. So go ahead and Google Blue and Gold opportunity for UC, and it will pop up for you. And that leads me into the Cal Grant. So California has a grant system. It is income-based. I'm going to put I'll put the income brackets here for you put it right here for you. And so you can kind of have a look at what the bracket incomes are. These are income-based. Now, I do see, if you're looking at this from another state, you might see like, wow, that bracket up there, that's a really high amount of income. In my state, that person could, pay for college. California does have one of the highest cost of living, so the brackets are going to be set for that because in most areas you do need to make quite a bit to be able to afford to live in California. There of course are some more affordable areas, but predominantly the state's pretty expensive, and the chart here is all set to that. So it's set with that intention that it's looking at cost of actual living in the state of California, what you can afford. It's also based on family size and how many of the people in your family are in college. So let's say the first year you applied, you didn't qualify, but the next year now your brother and you are in college, you might qualify for more financial aid. So if you ever have any changes like that, or your son's starting college and you're a mom or dad and you decide to start college at the same time, that will affect your financial aid in a way where you might qualify for more aid. So if there's any changes in your family situation, make sure you update your FAFSA, make sure you're doing that form because you might qualify for more. So that's another way you could qualify for free tuition is with Cal Grants. I also want to talk about two of our really popular private schools in California. We have USC, which is University of Southern California, and that school actually started a program where, again, if you're making under $80,000, your family income now, you could qualify for free tuition at USC. Typically, the tuition at USC is very, very, very expensive, and it turns off some of our students who might be lower income and assume they cannot afford it. But I do encourage you to have a look at their scholarships. If you Google USC free tuition, it'll pop up there. Again, these are income contingencies though, so you have to have under a certain income to qualify. USC has set that at $80,000. The next big school in California that's a private school that most people have heard of is Stanford University, located in Palo Alto, California. Also, one of the most expensive places to live in California is in Palo Alto. Now, Stanford has options where if you make under $125,000, you can qualify for free tuition, and if you make less than the $80,000, you could potentially get room and board covered as well. So that's really amazing because, like I said, Palo Alto is not cheap. So that's another option to get some free schooling. Now, of course, there's scholarships. There's scholarships.com. There's tons of ways to look up options for getting free tuition. And these are just some that I mentioned that are income-based. The Promise Grant is not income-based. All of those are specific to California residents. In addition to California aid, you can also qualify for federal aid. So that FAFSA form, I cannot say it enough how important it is to fill it out. Worst case scenario, it tells you you don't qualify for anything and you go to community college and you can at least get that for free and not have to worry about your tuition for 2 years. The other thing that are available to students are student loans. And a lot of my students, they get kind of wary about student loans. There was a lot of really negative information about them in the early 2000s. Maybe their family members had issues with student loans. And I think student loans are good and smart if you use them correctly. So I don't recommend usually private corporation student loans, private businesses. I would encourage you to look at federal backed student loans. And the reason is with a lot of federal student loans, if for some reason you lose your job later in life, or you have some income issues, there's a way to defer those payments. And with private loans, you most likely do not have that same level of security or availability in that option. So the federal are better. The negative with the federal are the interest rates are set when you get them, and they could be quite high. My federal loans are still quite high. I had to take out some loans in addition to grants, and right now they do not let you refinance them. So whatever interest rate it is, that's what it is. So keep that in mind. But you also want to look at education, however you look at it, as an investment. So you want to look at, is what I'm paying, and you're not just paying money, even if you qualify for grants, you're paying with your time. It's time you could be working. Time is money, right? But you want to look at, is that amount of pay, let's say even you had to take $20,000 out in student loans, which is around the average amount a student takes for a 4-year degree. 4-year, I say relatively average. Bachelor's degree completion still at 6 years in the country. But let's just say the average is $20,000. So what you'd want to look at is, without that degree, are you going to be able to reach that income that you would get with the degree? For example, if without a degree, you're going to make about $40,000 a year, but with a degree, you're going to be able to make $60,000 a year, which is around the average that someone with a bachelor's degree makes. That's an increase in $20,000 potentially over a year, and that's just 1 year. So you're going to be working for 40 plus years. So when you do the math, that investment in college pays out in the long run. Now, where does this not pay out? The dangerous things are when you go to private schools that are very expensive, you don't qualify for financial aid, you decide to take out $150,000 in student loans, and you're going to work as an elementary school teacher, and you're going to be lucky if you're making 70, 80K. Now your loan balance is more than you will make in a year, and that's where you want to be careful. Now, some states have loan repayment programs. You can Google those for your state, but you want to be cautious when you're looking at that option, because then you're going to be kind of trapped by that student loan. Those are going to be very high student loan payments. So when it comes to student loans, I tell students, take what you need, be mindful of what your payment will be when you graduate. If it's more than a car, and like not like a, Tesla or Lamborghini, like if it's more than a nice Toyota, you probably want to reconsider if that's the right school for you. So I've had students that don't qualify for aid. They're more middle income type of families, but they really want to go to this private school, and the private school costs $50,000 a year. They end up going there for 4 years. That costs them $200,000, and they want to go work and be an elementary school teacher, which if you look at the starting salaries for elementary school teachers, unfortunately, it is much lower than I think it should be. And now they've got quite a large student loan payment. They're probably putting majority of their income to a student loan payment. So that's what you want to do the research on. How much is tuition? How much will I approximately make when I graduate? And is that going to work out for me? Now, in that same scenario, had that person who wanted to be a teacher gone to community college for 2 years for free, and then they go to state university where they get their tuition covered with a Cal grant, which they might qualify for, they could perhaps have no student loans, or maybe a small amount, maybe like $10,000 to $15,000 that they took out to help with their housing. They're going to be in a much better place to pay off those student loans quicker than if they had gone to a school that cost them a ton of money that they didn't qualify for. So it's really a numbers game. And you also do want to know kind of what your career goal is. You don't have to have a specific job picked out, but you do want to know what field you want to work in and have an idea of what job you want to start in. What will be your starting job, not your job you're going to do forever, because if you've watched my Instagram channel, you know that I tell you that we don't do the same job forever. No one's going to get a job, do it that same job forever. So you want to think about what's that target job, what's the income I'm looking at making, and is this investment in my education going to benefit me? We do know, the research does show that people with a bachelor's degree make more money over their lifetime than people with a high school diploma solely. So we do know that it does pay off, but how it pays off depends on how you look at it. College can be affordable. College is an investment in you, and it's the best investment you can make because we know you're going to get a return on your investment if you do it wisely, right? Going to the schools that you know you can afford, that are going to work for you. So I hope that helps you as you start to look at your college options in the state of California. These options, again, are specific to California residents, but the part about the investment versus the cost of tuition, that's something anybody can really take away from this. You really want to do that analysis of, is the tuition going to help me get there where I need to go? So really do the math. Think about it when you're looking at schools. Know that there are ways to afford it, and always look at the investment potential of education. Is this going to pay out in the long run? I know that holds back a lot of my students from going to university. They think they can't afford it, but I really want you to look at the long game, not the short game. You're going to work for an average of 40 years if you're lucky. And so think about that long game, where will I want to be? Hope that helps you out, and know that you can afford college. It is possible for everyone of every income out there to make sure that you get a college education. And in California, we're doing our best to try to make it more affordable every year. Thank you all for watching, and I hope you have a beautiful day.